Good morning. I am here today with the lovely Miss Nora, one of my favorite people in the world. We've known each other for 2 years now, I think it is. We've both been incredibly active in the in-workplace abuse space, but I'm not here to talk about that as much as I am to talk about you and your new product that you're building out, Aria Journal. It sounds very, very exciting, and you're working with some incredible partners. So I'm hoping to just spotlight you for a second and let you tell us a little bit about this new venture of yours.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. It's really exciting to be able to talk about it. It's starting to be real and come into the world. I feel like I'm giving birth. But what's really exciting is that after a long journey of working with employers who are insensitive to the needs of their employees, and also employers who are sensitive to the needs, and they know and they speak the language, and
Hmm.
they're just purposely, intentionally not doing the things that they say that they should be doing.
Yeah.
Um, that that's what really got to me. I was like, okay, people know and agree that this is a problem, that there's a right way to be
Hmm.
doing things, and we're not doing it that way. And
Right.
what's the catch? Is it, do they think that they are going to lose money if they spend time on the needs of their employees? So, what I started doing, and just to give everyone a little bit of background, I have a master's in applied psychology from USC. I worked at Deloitte Consulting, focused on leadership strategy and building Leadership 2.0, which is under my mentor, Erin Clark, a really heart centered way to approach leadership. And I think that what I found was that a lot of people care about leadership and relationships and relational communication and doing it properly. And they don't feel empowered or resourced by the organization, which feels like this big, nameless shadow instead of
Yeah.
just a human being that they report to. So I started thinking about how can we use AI to bolster the claims of employees and really think about, not just do I subjectively think that I need this, but does AI, from an objective point of view, measure what is needed, what is missing from a team, where the motivating factors are that aren't being invested in to create higher performance, higher output, and all of the money words that employers love.
Oh yes. No, no, no. So important. That's why we talk a lot about the financial impact because it definitely seems to change the dynamic. But you're also working with some pretty interesting partners. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I am super lucky to volunteer with the American Red Cross. I am the volunteer partner to a woman named Emily Wilson, who runs leadership for disaster services. And together, we've been building out what an AI system could look like for the Red Cross. So they're actually going to be our first pilot partner. It's really exciting. I have, you know, there's a lot of leadership needs in every organization, but especially at the Red Cross, it's really crucial to have a pipeline of supervisor level folks who are ready to deploy at the um, at the start of
Above
the
a
pandemic.
hat. Yeah.
Right. Drop of a hat, we don't know. So there has to be a constant pipeline of people available and trained and ready to support their teams.
Of course. And so I was also interested in that, but then who is building this? So you want to tell us a little bit about that too?
Yeah. So I went to high school with a guy named Darnell Nance, who's our CEO. He and I have been friends since fourth grade.
Wow.
And although we didn't stay super close or in touch, we've reconnected a few times on work projects, and we just so happen to be interested at the same time. So this is his third app that he's working on. I'm building the science and the psychology strategy and the formulas for it. And then we have a firm out in the Ukraine that is doing the development or the MVP. And what's really exciting about that is that because it's just the two of us, we've been able to be really conscious about who we employ, what we invest in, and we really wanted to work with. Yes, we can't afford to work with American engineers right now, but we wanted to be really thoughtful about where we were investing our money and the teams that we were working with. So we're really excited to be working with the Ukrainian team.
Awesome. And probably also why you're a co-signer on the Workplace Psychological Safety Act, as am I. And so really love that you're partnered there. And so we talk a lot about like the changing work of like bullying and how people are now saying this out loud and pushing into spaces and accountability. So how do you feel like this app that you're creating might specifically help people who are hurting out there right now and are looking for resources?
Yeah. And just to be really clear, I am almost like imposter syndrome when it comes to employee work abuse because I feel uncomfortable with the word bullying. I feel like it's something that is subjective. We can't measure it.
I get that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the harm isn't being measured. It's not the same in all cases. So I actually I feel a little uncomfortable with the word bullying, but I do feel really good about measuring psychological harm. And
Good. Okay.
there's a woman named Dr. Jennifer Frazier who
Yes.
has
Yeah.
spoken for End Workplace Abuse. And she actually has an amazing book called The Bullied Brain about how we can quantitatively, physically see symptoms of bullying, psychological harm. One of my favorite things she talks about is betrayal trauma and how
Yes.
that impacts the body and is actually like a doctor's note, medical, physical situation.
I'm thrilled about that too. I know Whistleblowers of America are also coming up with almost like a trauma index, like where they're specializing in retaliation that comes from whistleblowing, and it's now being admitted into court. And so
Wow.
it's helping people establish damages. So that work is so, so critically important. And I get you as a researcher want to be able to measure it. But I actually do love the word bullying. I
Yeah.
actually love that it's in Jen's title, in part for me, just because in HR, I hear
Yeah.
people say, oh, that was incivility. But I'm like, well, if somebody commits suicide because of trust, I'm trying to find, and maybe that's not like the perfect word, right? But I also just feel like what has like the emotional weight to me of that. But you're 100% right that at the end of the day, it's in the best interest of the individual who's experiencing whatever this awful thing is to be able to measure it, to be able to document it in order to really be able to create language around what they're experiencing and find some form of protection, either from a doctor or from a lawyer who will probably need that doctor. I know you have some thoughts on that too. What do you recommend for folks that are, going through something like this now? Like you're going to be creating this wonderful app that's hopefully going to prevent a lot of things at the work site. But what about folks that are waiting? What is like Nora's best advice from the awful lived experience that I know you and I share? That you
Yeah. I feel like people don't come into this work without having been bullied or
right.
psychologically harmed
Yeah, nobody's
themselves.
just curious. Yeah. Like they have a horrible scar. And
It's like we find each other because we're like, someone else has to validate what I just went.
yes. And I think it makes you like an evangelical. Like when you go through something this intense, you're like, I don't want anyone else to have to go through that. We need to talk
Absolutely.
about it. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think what's really interesting about this work is that, the stories that we hear over and over again are the exact same.
Yep.
It's like the bullies follow the playbook, right?
Yes.
And so there's, a situation where maybe it's not a culture fit, or maybe someone is, threatened by someone else's demeanor or um, uh, truth telling
Mhm.
or wanting to do things differently, right? And we get negative responses to that where the manager or the person with power says, I want to shut this down. I don't feel safe, right?
Mhm.
And it's a almost emotional reaction on their part.
Agreed. Yeah.
And then what happens is the other person especially someone who may have be on the spectrum or take things more literally. They're being told that innovation is a quality to develop. They're being told that empathy is really important. So then they go and report it and they say, hey, I was just doing what I was told to do. And this person's not being empathetic, or they're being judgmental instead of curious. And all of the
Yeah.
things that were taught by HR aren't okay.
Right.
And when they report it to HR, they're told that they're a problem,
Yep.
that they're now a liability. And HR's job actually isn't to support the employees, but to de-risk the organization. And
Another
so,
word that I like a lot, de-risk, because you're absolutely right. And that's so important, I think, for people to understand those words and that language, because in the absence of that silence, it empowers so much terrible stuff. But yeah.
yeah, and good people who work for the organization feel like it is their job to shut down risk rather than support human beings. And that's where it gets really tricky, because it becomes sort of like an interpretation issue of role and responsibility and morals and values, where there actually is, a big divide. And good people have families at home that they want to feed and house, and so they say, I'm going to keep my mouth shut so I keep my job. It's
So
more.
sweet. I actually have a much harsher view because I've been in that spot. And
Yeah.
I also have, a very expensive teenager. And and you are right. To me, fear is what I spend a lot of time talking about. And and when you describe HR, I think you are unfortunately describing like 99% of how HR shops function,
Yeah.
which I think is unfortunate, and it's long overdue time for change. I think HR has a bad reputation. I think we've earned it. And for me, I think that there's so much information and data out there that says this is life-threatening stuff, either through suicide, through cancer, financial ruin, divorces, all these horrible, horrible things we know are happening. So to me, it almost becomes a situation where you have a police officer who knows someone is going to be really, really harmed emotionally, physically, financially, every way possible, but then says, oh, I don't want to engage with this bad situation or bad person because I could get hurt.
Yeah.
And so, as a profession, I think we really need that call to action, almost the way attorneys kind of went. I think it was like 150 years ago or so, where they decided we needed to become professional. We need to have our own ethics standards. Like there need to be a process that is outside of an organization that will hold them accountable so that they can speak up for both the employee and the company. And I'm
Yeah,
also hopeful.
I reached out to an ethics team because
Mhm.
I thought an ethics investigation meant an ethics investigation.
Yeah, I know. I've done that too. It didn't go well.
It didn't go well because they
Yeah.
just wanted to find out if I had any evidence that
Mhm.
could be used against them in court. They didn't want to fix the problem. They just wanted to
Assess
ascertain how big of a
liability.
threat I am.
Yes.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
know. And then my other favorite, which is pretty much guaranteed by the playbook, is if they assess that something actually is wrong and that you do have evidence and that you can back it up. The remedies is where we like to solve. And so a lot of times you'll see an investigation, usually done by an attorney. So they keep everything under privileged, it's confidential, nothing can get out. A complaint will never see that investigation. It gets handed over to another law firm to do recommendations and conclusions. And they'll say, oh, we may have found something, but they're going to minimize it as much as possible. And then therefore the remedy will also be minimized because they don't want to ever say that they did something wrong because the damages could potentially go up. And so that's why we see things like executives who've terrorized people, destroyed careers for decades in my particular case. And they're like, we're going to give them an executive coach, which
Right.
which has never been known to treat narcissism. Actually, I don't think anything actually can treat narcissism. And so, therefore, you now have a process that's emboldened a bad actor, and it definitely does not make life easier or better, or fix the culture, or make good people want to stay. Uh,
Right. Right. And I think, I've tried to approach it from a few different angles. I tried to approach it from, designing the culture. I've tried to look at it from employee experience. I've tried to
Yeah.
look at it from leadership strategy. I've tried to look at it from executive coaching. And I thought, well, maybe if I'm that person that they hire to work with the narcissist, then, one on one, I can really break through to what this person's vulnerabilities are. And then I thought, well, how the hell do we scale this?
Yeah.
Right? Because if we have a company paying for executive coaching for one person, what's really nice about that is it's tailored, it's customized,
Mhm.
it really works on a private level where people are hurting, and yet it's not scalable and it's expensive.
It
So
is.
that's why we created the AI system, so that people have a private one-on-one coach, and all of the really what's harming them outside of work, what they're bringing in terms of their baggage, is not being measured against them, but is being quantified so that their performance is out of what they can actually be giving at the moment, instead of what, a person with a perfect life could be giving. And then on top of that, we also measure different relational communication factors within each. So, email, Zoom call. If we had Aria Journal on right now, it would be listening to this, and it might be, not nudging me to be different, but letting me know afterwards, hey, um, it's at the end of the week, at the end of the month, I'm getting reports on what I can work on. And so
Nice.
it's not the details, but it's the pattern that it's measuring. And it's less of a threat. It's not, you're doing something wrong, you're going to get dinged. It's just sort of, hey, here's something that has become a pattern, and let's work on
Wow, you were so much nicer than me. I don't need you. But I love that you touch upon something too, because I do think this is really critical that I talk to HR folks about as well, is you have to establish that good rapport with the top. If you're ever going to effectively advocate for employees, there has to be two-way safe communication. One, employees have to be able to come to you and know that you're really going to protect them and really going to keep their secrets and do things that won't, that we're not going to create issues for them. But at the same time too, it is so lonely in these higher positions,
it.
and they are under a lot of pressure. They don't want to make mistakes. And what I have found in my own experience is that a lot of times when you have a bully executive, or like that, brilliant jerk, that highly prized person, CEO always knows about it. And a lot of times it's fear. They're afraid, if I confront this person, they'll quit. We'll lose revenue. We'll lose some engineering program. We'll lose connections. We'll lose something that they perceive as really valuable to the organization, because they're not just usually letting them do it for fun. They're weighing a cost there. And
Or they
so
know that that person's a jerk, and they know where the bodies are buried, and they don't want to see
exactly.
it.
And a lot of times they're more afraid of the bully executive who will fight back, who will go public, who will sue, which is way more than what a lot of us will do, where we don't want to challenge because the power dynamic's not in our favor. And this usually bullies just get more emboldened with time. And so building on that fear, have you seen anything like that? I know it's just kind of a pilot project, but I would love, like, are there ways to specifically help an executive who may be listening right now saying, hey, I know I've got this nightmare. I don't want to stick my hand in a blender. Like, how could Nora and her amazing journal help them in that situation?
Yeah, for sure. And first, I would say to that person, you are not alone. I have
Mhm.
worked with Fortune 500, Fortune 100 executives, and there are many people, including men, who come home and they cry themselves to sleep because they are under so much pressure and stress. They feel like they're breaking. And burnout statistics show that leaders are burning out faster and more often than employees, right? So I do think that one of the things that we didn't touch on that we should is that, this software is also designed to assist leaders, not just prevent bad leaders or catch them or whatever it is. It's designed to help people be managers, because right now, for the sake of efficiency, we have decided that people should have a full-time job. and be a full-time coach and be a therapist and,
And then train one. Yeah.
yeah, they're not equipped for all of these different roles, and they're not able to perform all of the roles. And and all of a sudden we're supposed to, have be each other's, you know, in terms of family, we're taking on new and bigger and greater roles. When I was growing up, kids were just left to themselves. And now you have to be with your kid all the
Yeah, I
time.
know. You have to watch them or you get in trouble. I was the same. I was a latchkey kid. I'm like, it would, yeah, my parents would be in jail now by these standards. Yeah.
Exactly. So, we're not factoring in that these parents are being asked to do more at the same time that they're being asked to manage more, and not just be a manager, but be a leader, and also, provide value to the organization in their original role. And yeah, and also be innovative and be a
Yeah.
leader, but also be a data scientist. And there's just too much pressure, but also ask on our people of all levels right now.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. What gives you the most hope for the future?
Mm. Um, Two things. One is I have a 23-year-old stepdaughter who um she dropped out of college, and she was really not sure what she wanted to do. She just knew that all of the pressure on her didn't feel good. And she had a lot of stress around living up to people's expectations. And seeing her at 23 really maturely have that sort of midlife crisis that the rest of us are having now,
Yeah.
it's she's like thinking about her health and thinking about her happiness and knowing, trusting that, the universe will provide, and she'll be fine. She just has to be healthy and happy, and then everything else will fall into place. And watching her go through that journey, I think, has been really beautiful, because I see people at the end of their careers having that journey now.
Yeah, no, it's far better to have it young. I can attest to that. Yeah. No, Gen Z gives me enormous hope too. They don't put up with all the stuff that
No,
I grew up putting up with. And I think that, Wayne College in particular, like there's so many poor kids out there with $100,000 in student loans working at Starbucks.
exactly.
And, I don't know if they're ever really going to get that money back. Like, who knows what's going to be happening now? But there's just so much turmoil, a lot of exploitation. And it's a really, really difficult environment. So I'm glad to see someone out there. So we need to push back on this a little bit.
For sure. And then I think the other thing is just seeing how Gen Z is really um, they don't believe in borders or, official lines. They don't believe in hierarchy. They don't believe in separation. For them, everyone and everything is part of their world.
Yeah.
And there's pros and cons to that. But I think what's really beautiful about that is that, you know, the divide and conquer phrase,
Hmm.
right? Without division, it's a lot harder to conquer an entire generation.
Yeah, that's a great point. All right, where can folks find you?
Oh, people can find me at Nora at ariajournal.com. I have a Substack and have been doing a lot more writing than posting. So it would be great for my motivation to actually start posting on that. But also at End Workplace Abuse, I am helping to coordinate the media strategy and make sure that our blog and YouTube and podcast and everything is all going in the same direction. So if you have media inquiries or ideas for collaboration, would love to hear from you as well.
Perfect. And then also on the Fairpath Project under my favorites, we have a link to your site too, of course. But no, thank you. You're a breath of fresh air and a ray of sunshine, and with so much going on. So I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm super thankful for the opportunity. I'm super thankful that you are doing this project and able to showcase all of the people who are doing similar work. You know, there's so many of us, and it just feels like we're in a silo until we meet each other.
100%. And it's really heartening to see how many people like you who are starting these great businesses who aren't only going to be good bosses, good people, good humans, the type of people you want to work with, who you want to work for, but you're just changing the world of work. And I think, getting more and more awareness around that, hopefully will bring a little light in someone's day and help push us forward. I do think we are going to be trending in a space where workers are going to be much better taken care of than they are today.
Yeah, I always say that right now humans serve organizations, and the way it should be is that organizations serve humans.
Yeah, that's not the first time I've heard that. I've heard, kind of like the way where we had like the industrial age, the information age, and now we're entering into an age of human potential. Because if you think about it, everything a company offers now, we're not in the widget space so much. It's
Right.
the ideas, the ingenuity, it's what you get out of these living, breathing human beings and treating them as the resource that they are. And not just like, a cost center or an expense
Right.
to be contained. And so
Totally.
much more work to do. But thank you so much, Nora.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.